Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Language Arts Gallery. Today, we're going to continue talking about writing a comparative essay for young learners. And we're going to talk about the basic structure of this essay, how we organize our paragraphs, and we're going to take a look at a mentor text. So please subscribe to my channel so you get all the videos in this genre of writing, as well as all my academic writing videos. And you can find this writing workshop lesson linked in the video description. So let's get started. So in our last lesson, we talked about building background on Alaska. And the reason we did that is because in this writing workshop series, we're going to be writing a comparative essay comparing our hometown with Alaska. Now, I said in my class, I do a series of stories on Alaska. I teach a unit on Alaska. So my kids are coming to this writing workshop lesson with a lot of information. If you haven't already taught that, then that first introductory lesson is a good place to start. If you've already done that, then you could probably skip over that and move right to this lesson. And this is where we really get into the nuts and bolts of comparative writing. So we want to start by explaining to our kids or listening from them if they know what it means to compare two things and to contrast two things. So when we compare two things, we're talking about how they're similar. Apples and oranges are both fruits. We're talking about how they're similar. Apples and oranges are different colors. So we're contrasting them. We're talking about a difference between these two fruits. Oranges are orange, but apples are red or green. So our apples and our oranges are what we call topics for comparison or topics of comparison. And in our essay, our hometown and Alaska are going to be our topics of comparison. So we want to get into what exactly a comparative essay is. So we want to introduce what's being compared. We're going to talk about how they're the same. We're going to talk about how they're different. And we're going to give examples and details. Now, one of our body paragraphs is going to focus on similarities, and another is going to focus on differences. So let's go ahead and take a look right now at what a good mentor text looks like. So here our title says, "My home is not like Alaska," so I get a good indication, a good clue right there that this student is going to be focusing on differences. And I can see that this essay is broken up into 4 paragraphs. This is very simple, but I still think this is a really good way to teach the building blocks of comparative writing because this is a tough genre. I think at high school or at university, this is a tough genre for students, but it's important that we get started teaching students early. So I want to go ahead and I want to look in detail at the different parts of this essay, the structure of these paragraphs. So we said the author's comparing her hometown of Springfield with Alaska. Now let's look at what she tells us in the introduction. Alaska is a very special place. In some ways, it is like my hometown of Springfield. However, Alaska is mostly very different from Springfield. So I can see the author's thesis statement right here. That's what they're arguing in this essay. And it's important, I think, for students at all levels to realize that comparative writing does have a thesis. You do have an argument. So this student is saying that Alaska is mostly very different. Now, this is where we have to be really direct with our students, and we have to get them to understand that if we're saying Alaska is mostly very different, I need to see that reflected in the body paragraphs. So don't tell me they're mostly very different and then give me a long paragraph about how they're the same and a really short paragraph about how they're different. If you're telling me they're mostly very different, I need to see that. Okay, you might say they're mostly similar, or you can say they are as similar as they are different, in which case I would have a very balanced approach. So let's take a look at that first body paragraph. It tells me right away in that first sentence, my students already know what a topic sentence is. So hopefully If you've been following along with our writing workshop lessons, your students understand that they're telling you the main idea in that first sentence, that topic sentence, and they're saying Alaska and Springfield are the same in some ways. So I know right away I'm going to be reading about similarities. Both places have beautiful animals. The seasons change in Springfield and in Alaska. In both places, people love to play sports. So right there, I've got 3 details as to how these places are similar. Now, if I go to my next paragraph, I can see this is quite a bit more substantial. I've got a lot more text here. And that topic sentence tells me Springfield and Alaska have a lot of differences. Alaska has very different animals than Springfield. In Alaska, you can find polar bears, walruses, moose, and caribou. However, my hometown has horses, cows, and many kinds of birds. Alaska has long, cold winters and temperate summers, but Springfield has mild winters and hot summers. While people in my town like playing baseball and soccer, many people in Alaska enjoy winter sports, such as skiing and dog sled racing. So when I look at this in context, I can see how much longer that second body paragraph is. And that's the paragraph that's focusing on differences. And that's what I want to see, because that student's thesis statement says that Alaska is more different than our hometown. Now, we've got a Venn diagram here. Your students, if you taught that first lesson where you're teaching an introduction, where you're building background on Alaska, you might have done that. You might have done this Venn diagram in that lesson, and that's fine. If you haven't, you're going to want your students to work through this by talking about what's similar about these 2 places and what's unique to each of these 2 places. Now, your slow finishers might need a little extra time working on this. If your students have already completed that Venn diagram, then they can take out this template and they can start drafting their rough draft on how Alaska is similar to or different from their hometown. And we're following that 4-paragraph structure where we've got our introduction, our conclusion, and our 2 body paragraphs. Now, students have their graphic organizers, and they also have a mentor text. So they should be able to use that to help them work through that first draft. And we're going to talk about adding to that first draft in our next video. So please subscribe so you get all the lessons in this genre of writing, and I'll see you in our next video at the Language Arts Gallery.